Hello, and welcome to the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast. This is John Goodwin, your host. Today we're at DragonCon. We have a very, very special guest, Mr. Ciruelo. He's been a judge now for multiple years, and we also have my co-host, Emily Goodwin. So let's just get on with this. The purpose of this podcast is dedicated to the aspiring writer or artist, and will provide inspiration and tips from today, Ciruelo. Welcome, Ciruelo.
Hello, John and Emily.
Hello, Ciruelo.
Nice to be here.
So, you've been a judge now for the Illustrators of the Future contest, 3 years, 4 years?
Probably 3 years already.
You did the cover art for us a few years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, volume 34.
Yeah, that was an amazing dragon that you did there.
Thank you.
So, just for the sake of people that are just now discovering you and for the people that already know you and are anxious to know more about you, so what's kind of like your life story in a nutshell, in a few minutes then, of how you got started into art and moved from Argentina, right?
Yes. I was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina in 1963, and I moved. Well, I started since I was a very little kid. I knew that I wanted to be a fantasy artist. Mm-hmm. So I was determined to do that from a very early age. And that made things easier for me in terms to do a career and to know what to do. So when I was a teenager, I knew that I wanted to do fantasy, and I knew that I had to move out from Argentina because there is not enough market for that kind of art. So I started working at 18 as a professional illustrator for advertising agencies in Buenos Aires. So I started getting some money because actually my whole childhood was very difficult in terms of money. My father died when I was 4 years old. My mother had to go out to work hard for my brother and me to have an education, to keep on going to school and everything. But I didn't have the opportunity to think about going to the university even because I needed to work. So at 18 I started working, and I suddenly became a professional illustrator because I had talent enough and I was willing to work 20 hours a day.
Wow.
As I did for, 5-6 years when I was working at that period of time. So I learned by working, but at 23, I decided to move to Spain. And because the market there was much healthier and there were many more possibilities for my art. So I moved with my wife, Daniela. We got married before leaving. That was in 1987. So we settled in Barcelona, Spain. And I started working from Barcelona for the rest of Europe through an agent. Mm-hmm. And at the beginning of the 90s, I started working for the American publishers, and I started my career as a fantasy artist in the States for big companies. And from that moment, my name started becoming more famous in the fantasy field. So I had the opportunity to work for big companies like TSR. So I had the chance to work for the most important publishers since the beginning of the 90s. And I'm working as a professional since then.
Yeah, it's amazing. Have you always specialized in dragons, or is that what kind of like you've arrived because of fan requests?
Well, as I told you, I was a fan of all kind of fantasy art, fantasy fields, fantasy universes since I was a kid. But I specialized in dragons when I came to Barcelona, when I moved to Barcelona, because I started working for a company which was publishing especially fantasy literature with the dragon as the main figure, and they in certain moment they proposed me to do a book on dragons, an illustrated book, a book on my own. So I spent almost a year working on that, and it was published first in Barcelona, but then it was published in England by Paper Tiger, which was a huge publishing house specialized in fantasy. And I was a fan of that publisher since I was a teenager. So it was for me a dream come true, publishing one of my books with them. And through that company, my book was well known all over the world.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And from that moment, I'm known for dragons.
You're absolutely known for dragons. What makes you come to DragonCon as, obviously, dragons, but is there any particular draw that you come here every year as you're one of the major artists? How did that come to be?
Well, actually, they called me and they invited me to be a guest of honor back in 2015. So, of course, I accepted because I was treated like a king.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
And I discovered all this universe at DragonCon, which is incredible because the organizers of this convention are given a lot of care to artists in general. So I am still being a guest every year. So this is my 5th year, and I'm
Your family.
still
Your
me and
family.
my family. Yeah, we are treated. We are guests here. They are paying for some things, hotel and that.
Yeah.
So that is really very important for me to be able to travel every year, and I'm getting an audience here. People who are finding me here every year. So that's growing and growing. That means that every year I feel more comfortable. I feel more in within a family, and also the fact that this place is full of artists. It's also important for me because I'm always learning. I'm always learning and being inspired by other artists. So being in places like that, like this one, is important for me always because I not only get feedback from the audience, but I also get inspiration from all other artists. And being DragonCon, which means that it's right in my path about dragons, it's special for me too.
Yeah. Now, you've been a judge for the Illustrators of the Future for a few years now. So what brought you on board on that?
Well, being a judge for Illustrators of the Future contest is also one of those highlights in my career because I had been a judge in many different contests, but much smaller. In Europe, everything is much smaller than in the States because the market is smaller as well. So this contest, Illustrators of the Future, is one of the largest organizations of contests that I have seen in my life, and I really find it incredibly interesting for young artists or for non-professional artists that want to get into the market of fantasy. So being part of this contest is a big honor for me because not only because all the judges from the past, all the judges who were judges during all these years most of them are my masters, my idols as artists, which makes me happy. But also the fact that I can do a job that helps others is also something that for me is very interesting. I was always kind of giving advices or teaching when I can. I'm not a regular teacher. I don't give lessons at any art school, but I am doing exhibitions and presentations and conventions all over Europe and the States. And in those places, I'm always talking to somebody who is asking for advice. And I love to do that.
Yeah.
It's being part of this contest, it's something like that. It's important in that field. Yeah.
It's definitely an honor having you part of the team.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So, what type of tip or advice would you have for the aspiring artist, just as an overview, who's going to be listening to this right now?
Yeah, well, actually, in my own experience, for me, art is something very important. It's not just a career. It's not just a profession. All my life, I gave more priority to the art itself than to the money I was going to get through doing my career. That means that I always looked for something else in my paintings, something in the subject I was working on, or in the trying to do my best with my paintings. So being a commercial artist for me was struggling between what the client needed for me to do and what I wanted to do.
Right.
So, and it turned out to be a good thing, because I am somebody who can do that with no problem. But after several years, after maybe 15 years of career, I decided to do something else, and I turned my profession, my career, into something more artistic, meaning that I was able to start doing my own creations at 100% free, then commercializing those paintings which were already done.
Right.
I was able to reach that point, that level. So I would give an advice to all the artists who are starting a career now. My advice would be, first of all, you need to know what kind of person you are. If you are really an artist involved with your art, or a passionate artist involved with the theme subject you are working on, or you just want to make money with that, which is also good. I mean, making your living out of illustration is always good, even though you only want to get famous and to have money. No problem with that at all. But there are some artists that want something else. And if you are one of those, you have to always look for your own personality in your work. You don't have to lose that point, because it's easy to get lost in the way and trying to copy others, because that's what the market is requiring from you sometimes. They want a cover, or they want to work for their publications in which they just want you to do a painting that reminds,
looks like Ciruelo.
For instance, or Frazetta, for instance, or somebody else, which is not bad, but probably you have something else to say, and okay, it's always necessary not to lose that goal, and trying to work that every day, to trying to find your own personality, your own style. That's a path in itself. That's something that you have to do looking inside yourself.
Right.
So when I have the opportunity to talk to people, to young people, or to people in general that want to develop their artworks, their styles, that's my favorite field to talk about. because that's something that I analyze from myself all my life. I go deep into my imagination and my own visions when I try to paint something or draw. So I know something about that.
Yeah.
And I know that there are many artists who are more in a commercial level and they can give other kind of advices or tips. But this is the kind of tip I want to do. So the work you should do every day is trying to remember that passion that led you to become an artist. When we are teenagers, we are pure souls. We are kind of feeling the world, perceiving the world with a fresh spirit, and everything, every emotion is kind of magnified. And so for that reason, we appreciate art, music in general, in the way we do. So that kind of feelings that I had when I was a teenager or a kid, I try to keep it every day. Still today, I'm always trying to keep that. How can I say in English that?
In Spanish, then.
Yeah.
That sense of surprise. I don't want to lose that feeling that I had when I was younger. You could lose it if you get much into the world, into the physical world. It's easy to get lost of that. But I want to keep that vision and that emotions that I had when I was a teenager. And that's what is driving me all the time. So being an artist, what I am doing now, being a fantasy artist, keeps that child within me alive.
That's great.
That's awesome. So if somebody wants to find your art or find you, do you have a website or somewhere where people can find you?
Yes, my website is dageditions.com. I mean, they can easily find it when they Google Ciruelo, my name, Ciruelo Art. They can find my website. They can find me also in my social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, because my daughter taught me how to do that.
And for the Americans, how do you spell that?
Ciruelo.
Ciruelo.
Yes, Ciruelo. That's my name. And and I would love to keep on being judge for Illustrators of the Future and being in Los Angeles, taking part of this mega event that you organize every year, because I love it, and I always recommend that to the young artists that want to get started in their careers.
Great. Well, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure talking with you today.
Thank you, John and Emily. It was my pleasure.
Yes, great. And here we are at the DragonCon Art Show, and you've heard various people as they've been walking by throughout this interview as well. So the Res and Illustrators of the Future contests are created by L. Ron Hubbard to provide a means for the aspiring writer and artist to be seen and acknowledged. It is free to enter and open to new and amateur short story writers and artists of science fiction or fantasy. Subscribe to the Rise of the Future podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you very much.